Hey everybody, it's Amanda, and it's Monday. It's time for our live Bible study. I hope you guys are having a good morning. I'm going to do what I normally do and take the link here and share that on the Fundamental Faith page on Facebook and also on the Fundamental Home page on Facebook. Oops, and I forgot to turn the volume down. And once I share those links, I'll come back and do prayer requests, and we'll pray and we'll get started with our Bible study. So if you're here for the first time and you are wanting to maybe hang out with us again, this is how you are going to follow us. You are going to, you can subscribe here on YouTube, of course, and you can follow us on Facebook with Fundamental Faith. You can also subscribe or follow the Fundamental Home, which is our regular YouTube channel where we just share stuff about our family on Facebook as well, because YouTube sometimes gives notifications, but they're always not super good about it. So I always share a link first thing, and that way you'll be notified when we are in fact live. So I'm going to put this link up, and I'm going to say, join us for the live Bible study. And I'm going to copy that so I can share it. And then I will post it soon. Hey, good morning. My momentum is good. I'm trying. I was actually up fairly early, and you just get distracted. So I'm here though, and that's the important thing. So I shared it in Fundamental Faith. I'm going to Fundamental Home and I share it there. If you guys would just give me a second, but I hope you had a great weekend. I hope Friday's Bible study was super encouraging to you. It was to me. We're going to talk more about that in a second, though. 2 Kings has been really encouraging. I hate to use that word again, but I just can't think of another word. That's exactly what it's been. It's been a good study, and I'm glad that we're here. Okay, just waiting for things to load, and it just takes a second so I can get the links published and make sure everybody is aware what's going on. Okay. And I think we're good. Okay. Yay. All right. So if you guys have any prayer requests, go ahead and let me know. I have tons of prayer requests. The main thing I'll say is I've been I'm doing 40 days of prayer, and I would just ask that you all would continue to pray for us for 40 days of prayer. We have lots of things that we've been asking the Lord for. Really, one is wisdom in a particular area, and it's a big thing. So if you would just pray for us and our family that the Lord would give us wisdom and help us with our 40 days of prayer. We'd really appreciate it. It is it's been a challenge, but it's also been good. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna see my boys heading out in just a second. They're heading out the door. Got lots of school and work going on, so I'm glad this is the timing of it all, because they can head out while we're still chatting and doing our Bible study prayer time. Excuse me. It's a big day for everybody around here. Mondays are always busy. This Monday too, my husband is off, so he's here in the house, and he is preparing for some things that we are going to be doing today, and my daughter is here as well. So everybody's here for the moment, but the fellows are heading out the door briefly. And there they go. It's perfect timing in the first 5 minutes. Everybody wonders when they watch our regular videos on the Fundamental Home channel. Sometimes when I film during the day, they're like, where's everybody at? There's nobody there. Like, they work, they go to college, they're heading out. They're barely here. I hope you guys are having a good Monday morning. I hope everybody's getting out the door and getting up and getting what they need together quickly and easily. Some Mondays can be rough after a long weekend. They're actually very excited because they have both Ricky and Marquise are in a student government, SGA, and at the college that they're at, and they're having a big Valentine's Day thing today. So they're all dressed up. Tears, Mama. I'm going to let them get out the door before we pray. I literally see no prayer requests, which is never, as long as I've been doing the Bible study, that has never happened. So if that's the case, then I'll just be praying for the unspoken ones, because I assume everybody has got something to pray about this Monday morning. So Christy, thank you. She says she has an unspoken. Have a good day, gentlemen. As they head out. Adios. Alrighty. They're out, so we're going to go ahead and open in a word of prayer, and it should be fairly quick, and then we'll get started with Bible study. Okay? Let's pray. Lord, thank you so much for bringing us together on a Monday, and I just pray that you would help us with our Bible study this morning, that it would be a blessing, that it would be an encouragement. Give me wisdom from your word so that I can share it. I pray for any requests around people's heart. I didn't have any written down except for Christy's unspoken, Lord, and I imagine she's speaking for everyone, that there's lots of unspoken things on people's heart, things that people aren't ready to share, but you know what they are. So I just pray that you'd be with all of those unspoken requests and just take care of them so we can all focus on you and your word. And I also pray for our 40 days of prayer, Lord, that you would answer in all of the areas that we're praying about. There's so many. I just pray that you would be with us and help us, Lord. In Christ's name, amen. All right, guys. We are in 2 Kings. And the last two things that we have talked about are like these super amazing stories of God's provision. Rhonda says she has the flu. I'll write you down. We've already prayed, my friend, but I'll be praying for you, okay? We've had these great stories of God's provision. So first we had the story of the people digging the wells. They needed water, and he said, dig them and I'll fill them. And so it didn't matter how deep they dug it, whatever they did, that's what the Lord filled. So I was telling it wasn't wells, it was ditches. I said, dig your ditches deep. So then Friday we were talking about the woman with the pot, the widow woman with the pot of oil, and he said, get as many pots as you can, and she poured out the oil, and then it filled all of the pots of oil that she had, and that was just an amazing miracle. So then we get to this story. It's immediately after the one with the woman with the oil, and it starts in verse 8, and it says, and it fell in a day that Elisha passed Shunem, where was a great woman, and she constrained him to eat bread, and so it was that as oft as he passed by, he turned in thither to eat bread. And she said unto her husband, behold, now I perceive that this is a holy man of God, which passeth by us continually. Let us make a little chamber, I pray thee, on the wall, and let us set for him there a bed, and a table, and a stool, and a candlestick, and it shall be, when he cometh to us, he shall turn in thither. Let's see. I think we're going to stop there. I just want to make sure that all of this, that's all I wanted to say. I think that's all that's relevant. Of course, our Bible study is all of the verses that have to do with food. There's more to that story, but let's just stop there. Let's just pause there, because we're taking all of the verses that have to do with food, and we're trying to figure out what the Bible is saying specifically about food and our relationship with it. That's why it's the Food in the Bible study. So I started, of course, thinking that I was just going to find some do's and don'ts about food, and it would, help me to be healthier. But I found, as I've been doing the Bible study, that all of these little things that are behind the scenes, the things that we don't really think about, really impact our relationship with food. That helps us have a unhealthy view of it. And so just doing this for a year and a half has really changed how I view food. But here, we've had all of these stories of God providing and God's abundance and him going above and beyond. But here you have a story about someone sharing their food, sharing what they had, and not just sharing it with everyone. And maybe she is. I mean, she's called a great woman. And can you imagine having the Lord call you a great woman? Like, man, I'm not the kind of person that I need a lot of praise. Like, some people really need that to feed their soul, and that's not my love language. But, if the Lord called me a great woman, that would fill my cup for quite a while. You know what I mean? That's just such a great compliment. But, he called her that, and you can see why, because her concern was other people, and not just anyone. Her concern was this man of God who was coming by, and she wanted to make sure, because she said, I perceive this as a holy man of God, so let's take care of him. Let's make sure that we meet his needs. And so, and you guys can, I see that Shirley left a prayer request, pray for her dad and stepdad and herself that they have chronic illnesses. You guys can leave your prayer requests if you like. We've already prayed, but I will put them on the list and we'll try to make sure they get shared in the group, okay? So, you have this lady, and she's just very concerned about taking care of God's man, the man that God has chosen to come and help others, be a prophet and take care of things. She wants to take care of him, and this is one way that the Lord provides for his people. You saw earlier with Elijah when the widow woman took care of him, when there was the famine. This is just on the day-to-day basis. She sees this Elisha coming by, and she's like, you know what, I think he's God's man and we need to take care of him. So she's trying to think, what can we do? And at first she just feeds him, which in and of itself is a major thing. You know what I mean? People often bless us, sending us gifts in the mail, and that is, I'm telling you, it's amazing. We got, last week someone sent us a little gift, and they said to buy some beef. Which was amazing, and it was totally unexpected and appreciated, so I'm going to buy some beef because that's what they sent it to me for. But it's just, it's amazing, and I really feel like it's the Lord's provision. I feel like the Lord has really opened a door for us to be able to minister here online, and I think that's how the Lord helps us to be able to take care of our needs, because ultimately our goal would be that we would be able to just do this full time. You know what I mean? Just be online and just share the gospel all the time. And little things like this, and it doesn't seem like much, when it says she gave them some bread, and they might not think it's a big deal, but it's a big deal, and it's a big deal to us when people share and give to us. But then she goes the extra mile, and she's like, you know what, I'm going to go even bigger. I'm going to give the man of God a place to stay, because I want him to be comfortable. When he comes through here, I'm going to take care of him. So they actually build him a place to live. They said, listen, I'm going to put everything out there. He's going to have a bed and a table and a stool and a candlestick, and whenever he comes by, he can come here. This is his space. And they've put it all together. But they're trying to meet his needs, both physical and spiritual. And so, the Lord is the spiritual aspect of that. He's meeting their needs, and it's just pointing Elisha back to him, saying, look, I've provided, and here it is. So I think that the important thing here is, when it comes to food, because we always got to take it back to food because that's the purpose of our Bible study, and good morning, everybody. The most important thing I think here is food is something, among other things, that we share. Yes, the Lord blesses us with it, and the Lord blessed her that she was able to have enough to be able to share. But, even if we don't have very much, like the widow woman who fed Elijah, she was down to almost nothing. And he said, feed me first, and she did. So it doesn't matter what your circumstances are. It doesn't matter if you have very little. It doesn't matter if you have a lot. But whatever they are, we should be purposing to share what we have with other people. We should be purposing to make sure that we are setting aside a portion of everything that we have to take care of those people who the Lord has put in our lives and the lives of people around us, to share him. So the first person that I immediately think of is your pastor. If you have a pastor and he has needs, make sure you're taking care of them. I mean, nowadays a lot of pastors have salaries, and some pastors have big churches and they have big salaries, and some pastors have little churches and and some have no salaries. And it just depends on your church and whatever their decision is. But no matter whether your pastor gets a salary or not, it's your job as a member of that church to make sure the man of God is cared for and taken care of and his needs are met. And I think it just makes sense. Some people get really up in arms about giving over their money for someone else. Especially when it comes to a pastor, they feel like he should just do it for free. I think, I know so many pastors. We know so many pastors and missionaries. Rick went to Bible college, so we're connected with tons of people who are in the ministry full time. And I don't know any of them that are worth their salt that wouldn't do it for free. But they also have to live. They also have to feed themselves. They have to feed their families. And I think it's our job as people who are members of churches to make sure that we are giving and giving abundantly. Do you know what I mean? Giving above and beyond everything that we can. And most pastors are not going to tell you if they have a need. They're just going to trust the Lord and pray about it. So we have to be sensitive to the Lord's leading to make sure that we're going to be able to provide for them. Rick and I told the story before. Our pastor in Maryland, our church in Maryland was a fairly large church. And many thousands of people attended there. But our pastor took a salary that was certainly not a large salary by any means. He lived very modestly. And it's just that DC area is an expensive area. So he lived very modestly and tried to be frugal with his money. And they shopped at thrift stores, and they were just, regular people. And the assistant pastor found out that their heat was not working. And they couldn't afford to fix it, so they were, doing all kinds of things to try to get by without their heater fixed in the middle of winter in Maryland, which is very cold. So he found out about it, and he got up in front of the church, and he made an announcement. He said, listen, the pastor, I found out this situation is happening. And his wife had some health issues too, and he's like, they need to have heat. We have heat. Our pastor should have heat. He needs to have what he needs. And it's not that they're being foolish with their money. They're trying to make a little bit stretch like everybody else. And sometimes things get tight and there are things you got to do without. He's like, but our pastor should not be doing without heat. So let's everybody get together and put a little in the offering, and we'll make sure his heat gets fixed. And that's what we did. And nobody felt like he was trying to be greedy. He doesn't drive new cars or have fancy things. They were just trying to make sure his needs were met. And so, and the pastor was less than happy with that. he was embarrassed about it. But at the same time, he was grateful and thankful because he felt like, he hadn't told anyone. They'd just been praying about it. And ultimately, the Lord provided, and he had to be humble enough to accept, this is the Lord's provision. And it was really a blessing to all of us who were able to give. And so I think, like I said, pastors and their wives aren't necessarily going to come out and say, we have this need. We have to be sensitive to it. Another example I can think of, our pastor in Maryland, his father was actually pastor of that church before him. And I had actually gone to that church when I was a teenager, his father was the pastor. And he's the kind of person, exactly, not the pastor now, but the pastor's father, who now works in missions. His father, when he was the pastor, he's the kind of person, he's just very, he just seems like he's got it all together. I know that I would have never imagined that his family didn't have everything they needed, because that would be my assumption every time. He just seems like the kind of person that had it all together. But his son, who is now the pastor, tells the story about when his dad was the pastor and they were kids, that money was always tight. And because ministry work is, if you're doing it God's way, you're probably not going to be living in mansions. You know what I'm saying? So he just really was trying to get by with what he had. But that being said, money was tight, and they had a big family with lots of children. And the pastor now remembers when his dad was pastor, they were doing a thing where they gathered food for the poor, and they went and took all this food to the poor. And then while they were there, they helped out at this dinner where it was like a Thanksgiving style thing where they fed the poor people. And I'm totally not wording this in the most politically correct way, but you know what I'm saying. One of those like food kitchens where they were feeding them. And he said they hadn't eaten all day. They were hungry. They were like, they wanted to eat what was in all of those little pans. And they were like, they wish they could eat it, but they were just like, well, we'll wait till we get home, and then we'll go have something when we get home. But they were just there to give. And they said at the end of the night, they were given some of the leftovers from that meal. And when they were given the leftovers from that meal, he was so excited about it. He wanted to eat it. And I'm trying to remember the story exactly, but I think what happened is, and I could be totally wrong, but I really think what happened was, so then they took all those leftovers, and there was a family in the church that was poorer than they were, and they took the food over to them. And the current pastor, whose dad was the pastor at the time, he was like, but I wanted that. But he said Dad was like, they really need it, and he took it to them, and then they went home and ate what they had at home. And he said, he really wanted whatever that other thing was, but when he got home, he was so hungry. He was just like, you know what, I'm just glad we got food, and he really appreciated it. But it was just that whole idea that they were constantly thinking about giving to others. That was the mindset of their family. It was like, these people really have need. Let's give to them, and let's go and work for them. Yes, they've given us this. Let's give it to these other people. We have food at home. Let's go home and eat what we have. And they were just constantly mindful and giving. But nobody knew that was going on behind the scenes. That's really the ultimate part of this. Nobody knew that was going on behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, they were struggling, but they were constantly giving to other people, so nobody knew it. And I think that if people knew it, because like I said, I was a member of the church then, if people knew it, they would have given in droves. They would have never wanted them to not have anything. But the Lord provided, and the Lord made sure they had enough. But I'm just saying that you never know what's going on behind the scenes with the man of God, because they're probably not going to pour mouth. They're not. And we were always, one of the things I remember of the assistant pastor's wife was she used to always say that she would try not to pour mouth. She would always try to make sure, good morning. She would try to make sure that when she spoke of her family and the things that they had, she would never try to say something that would negatively impact people's opinion of the Lord, negatively impact people's opinion of her husband, like he wasn't providing enough. She would always try to say it speak in such a way that she appreciated what she had and knew that the people in her family were provided for, because they were. The Lord was going to take care of them. But that being said, that didn't mean that they didn't sometimes have needs, and sometimes didn't really have to seek the Lord for them, and sometimes even had to do without some things, just because. Let me let the cat in with Brianna. There. She'll just cry until I let her in. But anyway, so regardless, again, this is just the point. You never know what's going on behind the scenes. And so we have to be mindful, because they're not going to complain. It's no one in ministry who really is unless there's something major going on. Sometimes people have children who get sick and they are desperate and they're like, please help us. Jump in and help. But sometimes for basic things like the heat, like food, things like that, they're not going to say anything. They're going to pray about it. And so our place as members of the church is to make sure that we are mindful and we're watching and we're saying, you know what, I noticed that this man of God is doing this and doing that. How can we bless them? How can we be an encouragement to them? Can we give them food? Can we take care of their needs? No matter what, again, our personal financial situation is, we can always give something. I actually have in the back of my Bible, there's like blank pages in the back of your Bible. I have one page devoted to my pastor's favorites. I actually wrote down the pastor's name, and if they ever say something to me that they like, I write it down, something food-wise. Because for me, I often think about food and things that I can make. Our pastor that is retired, he used to like coconut cream pie. So, and I didn't need to write it down. He said it so much I remembered it, but I wrote it down because in case I ever thought to myself, I really want to do something nice for him. What can I do? He liked coconut cream pie. I want to make it. Our current pastor likes popcorn, not microwave popcorn. Home popcorn. So I just have it written down. Food things that they like, because if ever I want to be a blessing to them, I want to have an idea of what I can give them that they'll appreciate and that they'll like. But also it might be a good idea to think of your pastor's wife. She's often forgotten and she does a lot of work behind the scenes. So make sure that you so you gotta pay attention when they speak and when they tell you. Don't say anything when they're doing it, but as soon as you're done, write it down and just make a note of it somewhere where you won't forget it. That's why I put the pastors in my Bible and the blank pages in the back, because I want to make sure that I'm thinking about what they need. We used to have a member of the church that did the sound and stuff, and I used to make them this chocolate chip bread that they liked. And to be honest with you, if this is just a side note, we weren't really close friends, the people who did the sound. But in my heart, it was, I wanted to purpose to be friends. And so I heard them say that they liked something, and I made it for them. And it actually helped our relationship grow stronger. And so that was another thing just to be mindful of, to be giving and think what you can do. And food is a great way to do it. Food is a great way to bridge those gaps and to bring encouragement. And it doesn't have to be snacks. Now that I'm more health conscious, I really try not to make it snacky all the time. You know, sometimes inviting them out to lunch. I don't know that anybody really invites the pastor's family out because they expect the pastor to invite them. But maybe just inviting them to lunch would be a good thing too. Lowry Diary says, how far is my commute to church? We have 2 children under 2. Ours is an hour round trip, but we adore the fellowship. When we were in Maryland, we traveled almost an hour one way. And it was a great church, and we would do it again. If we lived there, it wouldn't matter where we lived. We would drive that drive, and we would go there. But now we're actually very close to our church. It is not very far at all. So, yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a gift, Marie, to be automatically thinking of it. But even so, you have to hone it. You have to be mindful. You have to listen. And I think if you listen to people enough, you'll start to hear the things that they like and the things that they need, and you'll pick up on it. And if ever there's something that you can provide, then it's just an opportunity to do it. And I think this is the example of this woman in Shunem, this great woman that we're talking about, that she had her eyes and ears open, and she saw him, that he was coming by, and she said, oh, he must be hungry. Let me give him something to eat. And then she noticed as he kept continually going by, you know what, I think he's a man of God, and I think that he has a need of a place to stay. So let's put one up for him. Let's take care of him. And she did. And she absolutely did. And they made a lot of effort. I mean, think about what it takes to build an entire chamber. They have to build an entire chamber. Think of all that work and what they put into it just to make sure the man of God was taken care of. So the last couple times we've been talking about how the Lord takes care of us, but then there's this aspect here that we're talking about where we're going to use what the Lord's given us to take care of others. And we can definitely do what we can to help others. Yes, and it doesn't have to be food related, but just something to be mindful of, that food is not necessarily just something that you're going to keep for yourself. Food is something that also can be shared. And we definitely should be thinking, how can we bless the man of God with food and his family and support them? So that's just a thought. I mean, nowadays you could just send him a grocery gift card. I mean, I don't know many pastors' wives who wouldn't appreciate that. So just throwing that out there. I hope that was helpful to you guys. We're a little bit over time, and I'm sorry. But this is just a topic that I love. I love to find opportunities to give to people unexpectedly. You know what I mean? Like, I really like to be mindful of other people and their needs and try to give when I can. So, anyway, all right, that is it. Thank you for hanging out with me. It's Monday. We're going to start the week well, and we're going to start it thinking about what we can give to other people. I think that's always a way to make you feel better. You know what I mean? Sometimes we get caught up in ourselves and our lives and we get stressed, but when we start thinking about other people and their needs, it really lifts that burden. It does, because then you just forget about yourself. It's like, I'm good. Let's help this other person. And it's so much better. So much better. So, all right, you all have a wonderful Monday and Tuesday. And Lord willing, I'll be back on Wednesday, and we'll move on to the next section. Still in chapter 4. Chapter 4 is actually filled with a lot of great stuff. Yes, double batch. Oh, and Netherlands is 4 p.m. You know, I've been looking at Netherlands quite a lot. Rick and I have been considering some travel here in the future, and Netherlands is one of those places we've considered going. So it would be a lot of fun. All right, you guys have a great day. We'll see you next time.